Hi, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Beth.
Welcome to Dead Reckoning, the podcast where death isn't the end of the story.
This time, we're talking about San Francisco's first official cemetery, Yerba Buena Cemetery.
The first cemetery for the first podcast episode, Beth.
Yeah, and this one is kind of my favorite for a lot of different reasons. But before we actually get to Yerba Buena Cemetery, we have to look back at sort of the history of cemeteries in San Francisco to understand why this cemetery was so important and kind of why it's my favorite. Now, first of all, Yerba Buena Cemetery. Yerba Buena was the name of San Francisco in its very earliest settler days.
Doesn't it mean like sweet herb or something?
Yeah, it means good herb.
Kind herb.
And there is a specific indigenous mint variety called Yerba Buena that is native throughout California. And I believe that the city, as it was at that time, was named after this plant. But at that point, like Yerba Buena, the town was just kind of right around where the ferry building is today. It was this little cove on the waterfront.
Right, before the gold rush, right?
Before the gold rush, just a couple hundred people living there. But even before that, the first people to live in San Francisco, we're going to go way, way back, was the Ramaytush Ohlone. They've been in this area for somewhere between 10,000 and 14,000 years.
Dang, yeah.
I was just at an event on Mount Sutro, and they were saying, yeah, the Ohlone people were tending that mountain for 14,000 years. They had their own burial sites, which were all over the Bay Area, all over San Francisco. But things really changed in the 1770s when the Spanish missionaries and the military came. They set up the Presidio. They set up the. I love that.
Sorry.
Ooh.
It's not a scary boo. It's a boo. Fuck you, Spain.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry.
They set up a Presidio, which was sort of a military outlet. And then they also set up a mission where it still is today. It's no longer a Spanish-run Catholic institution, but it is still there. And there's still a cemetery there. They were the first ones outside of the Ohlone to start burying their dead in San Francisco. And that cemetery, A, is still there, and B, has operated without being moved for the most part. That's a lot of caveats.
Since then, right?
Since then.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's being buried there anymore, but there are about 11,000 burials still there on the property. And because it was attached to a church and a historic site, it was one of the few cemeteries that was not forced out of the city, which many of them were. And we might get to that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's like one of the few cemeteries that is still, I guess, visible in town, right? You can go visit it. I love it there. It's like so beautiful. It's like a little bit overgrown, and it's not in like, it's old, right? And so it's kind of it's a cool place. Lots of history.
There is a lot of history. And I think that the tally is that there's about 200 visible headstones, but again, about 11,000 people.
Yeah, because aren't there a lot of indigenous people buried there too?
Yeah, the people that built and worked at the missions unwillingly.
Yeah, I was like, worked.
Many of them died there and are buried there. But also many of the Spanish settlers, and because this was the first Catholic burial ground, there are a lot of early Irish immigrants who were buried there too. So it's, to put the best spin on it, it's a very multicultural historical cemetery that San Francisco still has above ground. And you can visit almost any day if you want to.
Yeah, and at Halloween, you could take a flashlight tour of it. Remember, yes. We were supposed to go do that a couple of years ago, and then I got shingles, and I couldn't go.
Yeah. Wah, wah. Um, After the missionaries came, about 100 years later, let's say that more like 50 years later, the white settlers, European settlers, started coming into San Francisco. They settled again around what they called Yerba Buena Cove. And um, the way that the waterfront was in early San Francisco, the Bayside waterfront was pretty different from how it is now.
So different, right?
Most of us know that it was filled in over time and stuff built on it. But yeah, it was this much deeper curve to it. Like it was very close to Montgomery Street, if you can picture that, um, which is now several blocks inland. And it was a very busy shipping port even before the gold rush. So one of the first cemeteries was this place called the Sailors Burying Ground. It was at Sansom and Broadway, about a block from the bay at that point, and it was mostly for sailors who died at sea.
Isn't it crazy to think that Sansom and Broadway, that was the waterfront there back then?
Yeah. Yeah. There was a great article from the time where they were talking about like the lonesome waves calling out to the sailors in their cemetery.
Remember when journalism used to be romantic?
So that was one of the first. There was also one on Russian Hill, specifically, I think, a Russian cemetery.
Yeah, I have heard of that one. And there is a story that there was a gallows up there too. I don't know if that's true. I think we've talked about that they used to hang people up there because the cemetery was right there. And because it was up on a hill, everyone can get a good view of it.
Wow.
Very important.
I mean, the hill was a detriment to the fact that it was a cemetery because, like, if you wanted to bring your dead up there, you either had to carry them or drag them up with a horse and carriage. And the horses did not want to go up that hill. Nobody wanted to go up that hill. So I think only maybe 20 or 30 people were ever buried there.
Oh, okay. Wait, are they still there? Do you think?
No idea.
Okay.
Maybe, maybe not. There are so few records from these first cemeteries that,
right.
Yeah, you have to go into things like, what did they find when they were building other things in this?
You have to go show up in Russian Hill at some like millionaire's mansion with ground penetrating radar and ask if you can like check out their yard.
Well, it's funny because what is there now is this giant luxury apartment building. It's super tall. That's right. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, it's a very tall, and it costs I think a couple $1 million per place to live there.
Easily.
Yeah, yeah. But there is a little side park that's very beautiful. So
let's get the ground penetrating radar out. Let's go out there. Ouija board. Just kidding.
There were a couple of small cemeteries on Montgomery Street, again, very close to the bay at this time, so just a block or so from where the shore was. There was a small one at Market and Stockton Street, which I love thinking about because there was that Forever 21 there for a long time.
Haunted girl.
There's been so much turnover at that site. But yeah, there was an old article. They were like, yeah, we're trying to build stuff downtown. And we found all of these graves that were in the ground at Market and Stockton.
That should be the tagline of the San Francisco. I don't know what our actual like marketing slogan is, but like that's the real shit, is that come to San Francisco where every time you do construction, you'll find a corpse.
Well, and speaking of that, one of the bigger cemeteries of this era was on First and Minna, like first between Minna and Natoma, and then almost all the way to 2nd Street. Pre-1950s again, but like at least 50 graves there. And they were redeveloping after the gold rush, right after the gold rush. And they first thought it was like murder victims, but then they kept finding more and more. And this old guy
the one
came
with
by.
the barrel where they
It is
prop
the one
this?
with the barrel.
Sorry, I'm going to ruin your story. I'm just placing myself in your story.
And this older guy came by and talked to the workers, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid, they used to use this as a cemetery, and they kept pulling out bones, and they had this barrel full of bones, and there was an article or an illustration in the newspaper. It was amazing."
That should be our logo. It's fair use.
It is. It definitely is. So the very biggest unofficial cemetery before the gold rush, that's a lot of caveats again, was in North Beach. So where Washington Square is now, that park across from the St. Peter and Paul Church, it was a full block. It started being used in the 1840s. And within a few years, again, it was pretty full. Probably 800 or 900 people buried in there.
Oh, that's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it is. In one square block.
In one block. Yeah. The city life, man.
So to give some context around this, in 1846, the population of San Francisco is about 200 people, not counting Mission, Indigenous, etc. In 1849, population was about 1,000. So it went from 200 to 1,000. In 1852, the population was 36,000 people.
That shit is wild.
People were coming here in droves. They were living in tents. They were living in cramped, unsanitary conditions, wooden buildings too. San Francisco didn't yet have any real hospitals or formalized system of healthcare. Many diseases, including cholera, malaria, yellow fever, typhoid, smallpox, and scurvy, went through the population.
Yeah, it was super dirty.
Yeah.
It was like the Wild West out here. There were no women. I mean, we'll get into that, I'm sure. But like, it's just like people abandoning their boats here and rushing to the gold fields, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There was one doctor who estimated that between 1851 and 1853, 20% of people who came to California died within 6 months of their arrival. And it was probably worse in San Francisco because people were living so close together.
Yeah.
Like that number was California. In the mining towns, people were kind of camping out, living outdoors. It was a little bit more airspace between people. But in San Francisco, people were on top of each other.
Oh, I'm sure. There was no sanitation here either, right? I mean, cholera must have just been blowing through here.
In 1850, more than 1,000 people died in San Francisco, including nearly 100 on ships arriving to the city. Ships were not great places to stay alive either. There was a cholera epidemic in 1850. 250 to 300 people died. And then there were more outbreaks in 1851 and 1852.
Yeah.
And San Francisco's early communities burned down 6 times between 1849 and 1851, killing somewhere between 300 and 1,000 people.
Oh my God. Yeah. I knew that it was very flammable here because everything was made of wood.
Yeah.
And it's so dry here in certain parts of the year. But I didn't realize that many people died in the fires. That's awful.
Yeah. Again, cramped quarters. People couldn't escape. Fires moved quickly. I mean,
it was just gas to light lamps and stuff too, right? Everything was just like a huge fucking fire hazard.
Yeah, and at least some of those fires were set intentionally by people who were protesting, things like that. Nice. We haven't yet talked about my book, San Francisco's Forgotten Cemeteries, but there's a chapter about one of those fires and one of the men who died in it. And his grave was moved 2 or 3 different times before eventually settling in Colma.
And this is a good time for me to plug Beth's book, San Francisco's Forgotten Cemeteries, which is excellent. It will be linked in the show notes. Everybody should go and buy that book. It's very good.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is some of the conditions that were creating the need for a bigger cemetery than the one in North Beach.
What was it creating? A lot of death. A lot of corpses.
This is why North Beach filled up so quickly. And it was not a well taken care of cemetery. The newspapers were quick to point that out. There's this quote. It's actually from another great book, City of Souls by Michael Svanovic and Shirley Burgess.
I love that book. I have that book too.
Yeah, it's so good. So they say about this North Beach Cemetery, body disposal was haphazard at best. Grounds weren't enclosed. Graves were heedlessly prepared. Those passing by could not escape the putrid odor. And sheep were grazing in the cemetery.
Dude, so were they like, did they not bury them deep enough or something? You could just smell dead bodies when you walk past the cemetery?
No way of knowing, but it could be that people were resting out for a day or so before they got buried.
Oh no.
But one of the common challenges in San Francisco is that the soil is very sandy and it's very windy. And many of these cemeteries, you would bury someone and then the wind would blow the sand right off of them again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. It's many another feature here. Of life here. Yeah.
So as the gold rush got underway, the land around this cemetery, North Beach, became more valuable. People wanted to move in. It was relatively close to the waterfront and close to this Yerba Buena Cove where people were living. And property owners began to lay claim to this land, but there were still burials in it. And nobody wanted to live next door to it either. So it was really difficult to sell plots of land next door to this putrid sheep grazing site. A quote from the newspaper, the Daily Alta California, 1850, said, "A visit to this place is sufficient to shock the sensibilities of men inured to even the most battlefield rude burial of the dead." So, this was worse than what you saw out in war. In 1851, the same newspaper said, "The grave of the nameless stranger is trodden underfoot. Streets are being cut through the cemetery, and that holiest of all earthly spots has been desecrated."
Oh, Beth, this is like the thesis of all of our work, right? Print that shit out and hang it above the fireplace because this is what we have staked our entire careers on. Here's the people we don't want. Put them here. Oh, it's nasty. It's overgrown. The sand is blowing off the coffins. We'll just pour some concrete over it and let's get on with our day.
Well, so at some point, the city did admit that they had to do something about this. And again, this is 1850, 1851. It's barely a city. There's no...
Yeah, it's kind of like a camp almost, right? Like a mining camp.
Yeah, there were some elected leaders, but
there were some vigilantes, as I recall.
Yeah, but there was barely a government to take responsibility in the first place. And I love the fact that the newspapers, even of this era, were putting pressure on the city to take care of this. But what really forced it was, so Powell Street runs on one side of the cemetery. It did not go beyond it at that point, but they wanted to extend it north of North Beach all the way to the coastal waterfront. So the city then hired contractors to begin the work of exhuming and moving the bodies to Yerba Buena, which had just opened. And we'll go back to that in a minute. So again, the city hired these contractors, but the work was done pretty poorly.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me guess, another through line for our work.
Yeah.
People were hired, money was spent. Was the work done?
Well, this is interesting. So the contractors were digging up the bodies and throwing them in piles by the side of the road.
Oh my God.
Putting them into carts and driving them off with no effort to keep them separate or identifiable. The coffins were burned if they were in poor condition, and then the ones in good condition were reused for firewood or fencing.
That's how you get a curse. Do you want a curse?
Wait, fencing? Where do we know where a coffin fence is?
I'm sure that if they did it, it's gone now. I mean, remember that San Francisco burned down in 1906. So
the coffin fences burned down, Carolyn, unfortunately for you.
Oh my God. I've never heard that before. That's so crazy. Oh my God.
I mean, to go back to the Sailor's Burying Ground for a minute, when they were excavating that one, people were digging it up and using coffin pieces and even bones for ballast for the ships. Yeah.
That is too much.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, bones don't weigh that much.
No.
That's your ballast.
Yeah. But it was just in with everything else, like the rocks and the
dirt,
wood,
debris, dead
they
bodies.
Were desperate, I guess.
They were cheap. I don't know about desperate. There had to be some rocks around here. They were cheap so many and lazy. Rocks. Oh my God. Okay. Go on, Beth.
The contractors did some of this work. They were taking people over to Yerba Buena Cemetery, but they didn't finish. By May of 1853, this independent businessman named Harry Miggs, he paid out of his own pocket to finish the paving of Powell Street and to move the rest of the dead from North Beach to Yerba Buena.
I can't tell if he's the good guy in this situation or not. Go on.
He's the medium guy. He later committed fraud and had to leave the country, but then came back and paid off his debts. And anyway, but he is the person who is responsible for there not being any graves left in Washington Square Park. So there's that.
Okay. But at least they were moved?
They were moved.
Okay.
They were moved. Right. And we'll get back to them in a little bit.
Moved is better than being used as ballast on a ship heading to China.
Yes. Or wherever.
Yeah.
So recognizing that North Beach was full and in bad shape and nobody wanted to live next to it, the city looked for a place further away from the city, from the bustling metropolis of Yerba Buena Cove, to stake out a spot for a cemetery. The city's surveyor at the time was William Eddy, who Eddy Street is named after.
He's a famous one.
He checked out this spot between Market, Larkin, and McAllister Street, which is this triangle of land. And he was like, this is the perfect spot. Nobody's going to live over here. Larkin is the city limit. And beyond that, it was just like sand dunes and wilderness. Mm-hmm. And he was like, this is far enough out.
This is perfect. Look at all this sand. Where else would we bury coffins? In the sand.
There's this item in the newspaper that said, we are informed by the city surveyor that he has staked out this cemetery upon the town reservation and that there is no difficulty in the way of using it as a place of sepulcher. It is situated upon the Mission Road and is not that difficult to access. He tells us that there are already some 50 interments already on the spot. So people were already using this as a cemetery before he officially was like, this is a good place.
An informal cemetery?
Mm-hmm. Because again, there were so many people dying. They needed somewhere to bury them.
Yeah, they were just, yeah.
And it was better than like just digging a hole where they were, which there was a lot of that too. So,
I believe it.
So Eddy was like, there is enough town property in that locality to make a cemetery sufficient to accommodate the dead of the city for the next half century. And I love that you're laughing.
The punchline, you guys, because I know when this fucking thing closed. Go on, Beth.
At least such is the opinion of Mr. Eddy, and as he has surveyed the lands, we presume him to be a good judge of the matter. So,
medium.
Here's the punchline. It was full in 8 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of the things about this is that it was public, so you didn't need to be a member of a church. You didn't need to be a member of a specific group. If you were poor and you died, you could be buried there at the city's expense.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like what we call now a municipal burial ground, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, remember, everybody, it was Well, it was pretty racist.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was like religiously affiliated, right? So we had like the Catholic Cemetery Mission Dolores, we had the Jewish cemetery at in the Mission also, right? Dolores Park. And otherwise, where would you go?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where the 800 to 900 dead from North Beach wound up.
Oh.
And according to one of the city archaeologists, they were buried in a deep pit, 80 feet by 25 feet, piled on top of each other, side by side. Soldiers and sailors, mechanics and merchants, lawyers and legislators, men of all creeds and professions.
Death is the great equalizer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, come on, that's fucked up. They basically dug a big hole and dumped all the people from North Beach who had their own little graves before and coffins. Like, just imagine that, right? You have, I mean, I don't know if people were paying for stuff or whatever back then, but you have put someone decently to rest, especially back then. That was really important.
Yeah.
And they're moved en masse.
Yeah.
And they're basically thrown in a mass grave.
Yeah.
And that mass grave is in the middle of Civic Center, you guys.
I have a question though. Was this like common practice in other cities that had to move bodies, or was this unique to San Francisco, or do we know that?
I mean, it's a complicated question and a complicated answer. Many urban places did have mass relocations of graves. London is a great example. Paris is another. But I don't know the intricacies of like these small moves from one to another necessarily. And San Francisco was unique in the sense that they were the city that moved the most dead later on when they kicked everybody out of the cemetery. Kicked everyone out of the city. About 150,000 burials were moved. But again, like there were more than 200,000 burials in the city. So one of the pieces of my book is accounting for who was left behind and where they still are. And Yerba Buena is one of those places, but we'll definitely get to that.
It's so interesting because back then you tend to think of, or I think of, especially like the Victorian era, the social restrictions were so high, religiosity was really high. It was very important to adhere to the social order and do things the right way. Now I know San Francisco was a little bit different because it was a little bit lawless here. There weren't a lot of churches. It was mostly men. But then after all this protocol for burying someone, it kind of goes out the window when they decide they need the land, right? There's not a lot of oversight. I mean, I guess maybe the newspapers are paying attention, but it's just interesting to me, that juxtaposition of how there were a lot of rules that had to be followed until they didn't.
Yeah. Right. And the state of cemetery law at this point was kind of non-existent.
Oh, it was probably zero, right?
But on top of that, like we have these successive relocations and removals of cemeteries over time. But the thing about like North Beach to Yerba Buena is that like North Beach had only been in use for 10 or 15 years, but already these people were forgotten. Like the turnover was so high in San Francisco that hardly anyone remembered who was buried there in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it matches the human turnover, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Allegedly, the Sailors' Burying Ground, Russian Hill, and these other early cemeteries also relocated to Yerba Buena.
I'm allegedly, heavy emphasis on that.
But again,
a lot of mid-level work was done on that too.
No solid records one way or the other, as far as I know. So there are different descriptions of what Yerba Buena Cemetery looked like in the 1850s.
Okay.
One of the newspapers said that it was a beautiful spot, sort of like hilly landscape with evergreens and oaks and bushes.
That's crazy to imagine Civic Center looking like that.
Yeah. One of them said the crooked trunk and limbs of the oaks gave a romantic appearance to the cemetery, and under the shade of the trees were handsomely ornamented graves.
Oh.
However, another description, this is from a great book called The Annals of San Francisco, that is just like newspapers and journal entries from the time. So they described this cemetery, an unenclosed waste that lies in a hollow among miserable looking sandhills, which are scantily covered with stunted trees, worthless shrubs, and tufted weeds. It extends over a large space of ground and is among the most dreary and melancholy spots that surround the city.
Oh, God, that's depressing, isn't it?
In 1850, there was nothing visible below and around but the loose, barren sandhills, their scattered patches of wild bushes, while above was the boundless, pitiless firmament. The din of the city could not penetrate here, and the only sound sometimes heard was the mournful requiem of the distant waters of the bay.
Beth, we need to bring this poetry back.
I know.
To newspapers. You got to talk to Mission Local. We need more beautiful poetic language.
Right. I mean, it's pretty evocative, even though it's negative.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me feel pretty fucking depressed to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it was full by 1858.
Damn. So you guys, how many years was that, Beth? 8 years?
8 years.
8 years full.
And the estimates are really hard to track down, but the Daily Outlook of California estimated that between 7,000 and 9,000 people were buried there.
Dang, that's not that big of a space.
No.
If you're listening, we'll post a map in the notes, but it's basically you're talking about a Civic Center Plaza, roughly. Wouldn't you say, Beth?
It's bigger than that. It contains what's UN Plaza now.
Oh, okay. Up to Market.
Yeah, the main library, Asian Art Museum, and then those buildings up to Market Street. We'll get into the 9,000 geography.
9,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, there couldn't have been that many markers, right? There's no way you could fit.
I mean, aside from the North Beach ones, I think most people did have some kind of marker.
Okay.
And they found a lot of them in later excavation, which again we'll get to.
That's cool.
Again, the number is not clear, but probably at least 5,000 and probably as many as 9,000. There was no fence, again, like with North Beach. There were some efforts to try to get a fence, but it doesn't seem to have happened. In 1852, the newspaper said, beasts roam all through it, wagons and carriages drive through in every direction, and it is as unprotected as any of the roads. So,
can you imagine you're in your carriage and you just drive it right over the fucking cemetery?
Yeah.
Like, were these people not afraid of being haunted? I mean, when we were kids, we used to hold our fucking breath when we drove past the cemetery.
Yeah.
Not drive your carriage right through it.
In November 1853, a man was caught in the cemetery stealing a body from one of the graves.
Nice. Oh, was he stealing it for medical research?
We don't know. A police officer discovered the crime in progress and shot at him, and he ran away.
Reasonable.
So he didn't steal the body. An out-of-town journalist was walking by the cemetery one day in 1853, and people were gathering fatty tissue from the decomposing bodies to make soap with them.
Look at Carolyn's face. Every time, I already knew this fact.
Yeah.
I know this fact.
Yeah.
And I knew it was coming. But I still, every time I hear it.
I know.
So just so everybody heard and understood. People were gathering fat from dead corpses.
Well, it's a chemical compound that comes from the decomposition of body fat.
Okay, you guys, the chemical compound that comes from the decomposition of body fat. And what were they doing with it? How are they making soap out of it? Were they boiling it?
Probably. I don't know that much about natural soap making, but I know it's a really nasty process.
I know it's a especially nasty process when it's human tissue that you're using to create fucking soap. Can you imagine what that shit smelled like?
I don't think the cemetery smelled that good to begin with, but yeah, definitely not.
So repulsive.
So San Francisco continued to expand. Even by the end of 1853, the city was starting to look for other places to make cemeteries. They eventually landed on some on and around Lone Mountain, which is a story for another day.
Oh, yes. We'll get into it.
And burials at Yerba Buena Cemetery stopped in the late 1850s. However, everybody remained in place until 1867-ish. And during that period, the graveyard became even shabbier.
Yeah, because nobody knew was being buried there. So I'm sure there's fewer people visiting. There's fewer people taking care of it. Yeah.
And here's a quote that answers your question from a few minutes ago. Many of these graves are unmarked by stones, headboards, or even mounds. Relatives and friends of the hundreds buried here have no knowledge of where the exact spot where the deceased lie, and can never learn to a certainty whether they will ever be disinterred, even when the entire yard is dug up. So the city raised about $10,000 to move the bodies. However, that was not, of course, enough money to do all the work that they were supposed to do.
Oh, let me interrupt you real quick. They're moving them. The cemetery's full. Yeah. They're like, we need to move these bodies because we want to build City Hall and the Asian Art Museum here. Just kidding, you guys. Just City Hall. Where were they going to move them to?
The new cemetery is on Lone Mountain.
Okay, Lone Mountain.
Yeah. Although, again, by this point, there was another municipal burial ground starting to open up called City Cemetery.
That's my favorite cemetery.
Yeah, that's the one where the Lincoln Park Golf Course and the Legion of Honor are. Spoiler alert, there were about 30,000 people buried there, and probably 10 to 20,000 are still there.
Still there.
So the city officially announced its plans to disinter the dead at Yerba Buena in 1862. They started by asking friends and relatives to locate their loved ones and get them moved before
how even could they?
They couldn't.
There's no markers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like such a bullshit. It's like, well, if you want your person, come get them.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how?
Well, even then, many of the people had probably moved somewhere else.
Yeah.
A quote again from a city archaeologist. The removal work was performed by hand labor and much guesswork. As one journalist noted during a visit to the cemetery, it was hard for the grave diggers to find burials because almost all traces of the graves had been obliterated. Not even a clue remains by which a row of bodies may be discovered. The city disinterment process began in 1866, 1867. I found an archaeological report that said about 1,868 graves were found, dug up, and removed to somewhere else.
So if you can do math, 1,800 is less than 5,000 to 9,000. Is it not?
By a lot.
By quite a lot.
Yeah. In February 1866, the Daily Alta California had a firsthand description of this exhumation. You might want to sit down for this.
I'm ready.
The bodies in all cases are completely decayed. Occasionally, a tuft of hair remains, and a clammy substance more resembling clay than flesh.
Oh!
Sometimes the bones are much decayed. This is particularly so in the case of young children.
Oh, stop it!
I know. The bones in all instances are yellow, moist, and moldy.
No.
When the sand
use the word moist.
Yeah.
Especially not when you're talking about a corpse.
Or moist and moldy.
That's where the mold comes from.
Yeah. When the sand has been removed by a shovel, the coffin is usually found to be very rotten, frequently so far gone that the bones are scraped for with a small rake in the sand and then collected together only after much patient search.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the coffins, yeah, I mean, they would be decaying. They weren't treating the wood. It's not like today where things are shellacked and,
Mm-mm.
it's just an organic piece of wood that goes into the ground. And
well, and specifically, a lot of the coffins were made of redwood, which was harvested up in Sonoma County. Like 95% of the redwoods in Northern California were gone because of San Francisco's construction. But yeah,
we kept burning down, Beth.
It's also because of that.
We had to cut down all the trees to rebuild 16 times.
But also, redwood is very soft and it doesn't last very long when you put it in the ground. So that's part of why these coffins were in such bad shape.
Well, it's also like part of why you should just leave them where they're at, right?
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, it is biodegradable. You eventually return to the earth. That's all great. But it's not great if you're trying to preserve an individual burial when you're digging it up and trying to move it. So many, as we did the math, were left behind in the cemetery grounds. And this was not the end of this site. Like, they cleared it out because they wanted to do other things with it. So
yeah, I mean, it's currently the center of town, like the civic government of San Francisco.
In the 1880s, the city began building a new city hall. Now, this is like, let's try to get the geography. It's very confusing, but this is about 2 blocks from where current city hall is. Again, Larkin, Market, McAllister streets. So they built this elaborate city hall in this sort of triangle of land. And there was like a strip of park along Market Street. It was sort of like a diagonal park. It was very pretty. The city jail was attached to it. So you had City Hall and the jail. So they started excavating. And almost immediately, they started finding the graves.
Yeah, obviously, because how much time has even elapsed here?
Yeah, it's 20 years.
20 years. And there's, up to like 6,000 people still left there or something.
Yeah. In 1889,
I might have to correct the math on that later, but there's a lot of fucking people still down there.
In 1889, a crew found at least 70 graves, including many Chinese immigrants. But even at the time, they might not have been moved somewhere else. An archaeologist later told the Chronicle they actually built City Hall right on top of the bodies.
100%. Yeah. When everyone's going to hear about this when we talk about Lincoln Park, but it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, we moved them. It's Cuesta Verde, you guys. This is Poltergeist. But, right? That's the whole thing. Oh, yeah, we moved them. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. One of the graves that they did find in this era was a guy named Thomas Ludlow, who had died of cholera in November of 1850. They knew it because his stone was there still. The workers who found his body became very sick, and they were convinced that they got cholera from digging up his grave.
That's not possible, is it?
No, it's not possible.
No, what they got was a fucking curse. That's what they got. They got psychological distress from digging up a cholera victim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they got.
Yeah. So they built this city hall, and in the 1906 quake, it was destroyed.
Yeah, with everything else. And like, especially we know from all of our research, most of the records that had anything to do with really everything, it's all gone. Everything before 1906, it's all burned up.
A lot of it is gone.
A lot of it is burned up.
But the city was determined to keep using this site for things. They moved the city hall over to where it is now, Polk Street, and they started building a library again at Larkin and McAllister in about 1908. They found 25 graves, maybe some of the same graves from before.
Mm-hmm. That they just left there and built over.
They, maybe not a good place to build if they're graves underneath, and the earthquake knocks it down. Anyway, so this time they took the remains out of the ground. They put them in a box to be picked up at the coroner's office. And then somebody stole the skulls before the coroner could get to them.
Yeah, obviously. You know why? Because they didn't put them behind a glass case like Walgreens. Lock it up. Okay.
I love this. The Chronicle reported at the time, quote, "It is presumed that they were taken by medical students or ghouls."
Ghouls. Oh, my money's on the medical students.
Yeah.
But ghouls, wait, what's the technical definition of a ghoul? Do you remember? Isn't it like somebody who eats dead bodies or something? No, it's a cannibal. It's like, look, I see Carolyn's mouth open. Is she Googling ghoul?
I'm Googling it. Technical definition.
What's a ghoul?
An evil spirit or phantom, especially one supposed to rob graves and feed on dead bodies.
Ooh.
You were right.
I was right. See, I can't do the math on that body swap, but I could remember that a ghoul did eat dead bodies.
I mean, San Francisco is very welcoming to different kinds of people. Ghouls are welcome here, I suppose.
We still have TEI here, you guys. Stop it. I mean, they did used to take those skeletons from for classrooms and for doctor's offices. I mean, you remember those like Norman Rockwell paintings of the doctor's office? So there would be a skeleton hanging in the corner. Those were real skeletons. They didn't have factories overseas to make those plastic skeletons for them. So that's where they came from.
This is a complete aside, but anytime you go to a doctor's office or a chiropractor or a physical therapist and they have a skeleton, like a model, ask them what their name is for their skeleton model, because they all have one.
Really?
Yeah. They all name their skeletons.
Like my gynecologist has like a giant pelvis on her counter, right? I've never seen like a full skeleton, but now
What is her name? What is the name of the pelvis?
What's this diva's name? Yeah.
They may not be naming the body parts, but usually they do name the skeletons, and I find that very adorable.
Okay. Adorable. So that's a word. All right. Come on, Beth.
So
what else did they find when they built this library?
Well, so here's the thing. The spectacle of excavating to make room for the library drew people from all over the city who wanted to watch them dig up graves.
Dude, you know we would have gone. So listen to me, I'm all, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. You know, my ass would have been right up in front of the line right there. Like looking. Can I see? Like paying people off so I can get in there and see. I'm just kidding, you guys. Settle down.
I would totally watch. Anyway, so the Chronicle wrote, when it became known that the workmen were excavating on the site of the famous Yerba Buena Cemetery, a great crowd collected to watch the uncovering of the graves. Many rotted coffins were discovered, but in every case, the bodies had completely decomposed, owing to the damp and sandy nature of the soil, and only a pile of bones remained to tell that a human had once been interred there. Fast forward to 1932, there is a federal building at Hyde and McAllister, just off of where UN Plaza is. While digging to build that site, crews uncovered the grave marker of a man named John Connolly, who died in May 1851 at the age of 38. And at the time, we have the notes from a contractor who was in charge of this project. The contractor's name is M.J. Tracy, and he wrote that his worker, Emilio Regarcio, was digging a sewer near the intersection of Leavenworth and McAllister when he found Connolly's bones along with his grave marker. And so here's the note, quote, "It is supposed that there was a cemetery in this vicinity a good many years ago."
Yeah. I mean, it took up like 8 blocks, like, or whatever.
Yeah. But between 1850 and 1930, or even 1860s and 1930, they had completely
forgotten about it. Yeah. They had memory hold that shit. They were like, it's time to build a sewer.
In 1834, they actually found more than 20 graves in the course of construction, some with headstones that were 15 feet below the current street level. And
that's deep.
They decided, partly because it was so deep, that the remains would not be moved. So they're probably still there. And then more recent history, people may remember that the main library, so it used to be at Larkin and McAllister. The main library was moved to its current location at Larkin and Grove, so basically right off Market Street. And the old building was turned into the Asian Art Museum. Now, this is a site that has been excavated multiple times. However, workers found another 97 bodies.
I remember this because you're right. They've been building on that site continuously since the 1850s. Yeah. And every time they're pulling bodies out. Yeah. And so at the final time in the 2000s, when we have digital media and everyone knows about this, it's up to 100 bodies.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And by now we had pretty good cemetery laws, so these 97 had to be excavated. They could not be identified, but they were reburied. There's a place in the Cypress Lawn Cemetery in Colma. It's called the Pioneer Garden. So these remains were put in that place. So we don't know who they were, but we know where they are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are pretty superstitious about this stuff before they opened the Asian Art Museum.
Yeah, no shit. The public. A lot of people is me.
They were worried that people would not come to the Asian Art Museum. I think in particular because a lot of Asian cultures have more, I'm not going to call it superstition, but different beliefs about
they have more strict,
the dead.
Yeah.
And active ancestor veneration practices. So the museum leaders invited a Tibetan Lama to perform a cemetery before it was opened.
Beth, as I recall, that is because Rose Pack smacked a bunch of people around and said, we're not doing this until you have some kind of ceremony or some kind of process to honor these people.
Yeah. Well, and she said, I think she actually never went there, even after this stuff was done. So they had a Tibetan Lama come to clear the energy. And also there was another multi-faith ceremony in 2003 before the museum opened to the public, just to completely try to clear the air.
Yeah. And I actually went up to that. It's at Sky Lawn, right? The Cypress Lawn.
Cypress Lawn.
I always get those two mixed up. To that monument. And it's very nice. It's a very tasteful, well executed monument in a nice, well cared for cemetery.
Yeah.
So it's technically better than what Yerba Buena was, at least.
Yeah. So I came across, but there is a very extensive archaeological report from the construction of the main library, the new main library in the 90s, where they took notes on any burial remains that they found. They were aware at this point, this had been a cemetery before. There had been a city hall here. All of these other things had been.
And they have laws now that require archaeologists to come and be on site when this stuff is excavated now.
Correct.
You can't just, if they think there's people down there, you have to hire someone.
There had been other buildings here, but they knew not all the graves were likely gone. And yet, here's the thing. So they were done, the construction was done in 2 phases. And it started with excavating some of the soil on this site. They had actually taken soil to the local landfill before somebody recognized that there were human remains in it, bones. The operations manager of our landfill, which is in Brisbane, right out the city, he noticed that the sand and sediment from the library site contain eroding human bones.
Dude, come on. Yeah. You cannot tell me that when you're operating your excavator, you didn't notice that.
Yeah. He initially called the Brisbane Police Department, thinking, again, it might be a potential homicide.
Yeah, it could be a crime. Yeah.
The San Mateo County Coroner's Office, because again, this is across the county line, San Mateo Coroner's Office collected some of the bones. The rest was collected by the archaeological management company that was overseeing the library project.
I mean, how overseeing it?
Yeah.
Okay. What, from 100 feet away? What do you... Put your glasses on. Yeah.
All of the remains did eventually go to the San Francisco Medical Examiner's office and were analyzed. So here's the thing, and this is possibly why it was missed. They were mostly a lot of small bones, like vertebrae, finger bones, and teeth.
Okay.
Yeah. And because they were so small pieces, they weren't sure how many different people this represented. They said it was a minimum of 59 to a maximum of 745 people that these bones could have come. Yeah. 45 of the 59 were probably composites of different people.
Oh, I see.
And there were only 14 that were definitely discrete sets of burials. So, yeah.
I mean, it's possible also that like in all the previous construction projects, they got, kind of turned over into the soil and missed. Yeah.
Well, this is also a site where body parts used for medical research may have been buried with whole bodies after the parts were done being used.
Well, we're going to talk about that later in this season.
Yes.
So
some of these were from the North Beach reburial, so they'd been buried a couple times. And then there were some details from the exhumations that took place in the 1860s where it suggested that they took up all the long bones of the body, the femurs and the arm bones and the ribs and the skulls, and then maybe didn't find all of the little bones like the teeth and the fingers and the toes and whatever else. Some of the bones in the 1990s had facial fragments that also suggested that the skulls may have been damaged during the earlier excavation. Like they maybe were not that careful digging people up, or they were poking in the ground to find where the bones were and accidentally shattered a skull. So here's a quote. The overall skeletal element distribution suggests that exhumation probably started somewhere at the body ends, the head or the feet, and resulted in damage to the skull and probable damage to the foot before the exact placement of the remains had been determined. The long bones, the rib heads, the vertebrae were then removed, probably leaving posterior vertebrae, rib fragments, cranial and dental fragments, hand and feet elements, etc. They did a lot of analysis of these bones, but because they were so small, they didn't learn a lot about, say, the age of these people or the gender. They showed a lot of traumatic injuries, though, and I think this is really interesting. Of all of the facial bones that they found, all had broken noses that had healed, except for one that had a fracture that extended all the way to the eye socket and showed signs of infection. So possibly this person died after getting a broken nose that went septic or something like that.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, we'll talk about this later in the season too. The remains that they examined up at Lincoln Park, like a lot of them showed arthritis and broken bones and injuries. Like life was hard back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this interpretation that the incidence of fractures to the nose is extremely high and probably related to a very specific social practice, e.g., fist fighting or the like, possibly associated with drunken brawling.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So 1850s guys were getting drunk and punching each other in the face.
Perfect.
So everyone had broken noses. There was one rib that showed a previous fracture. Some of the bones had, the vertebrae had compression that suggested people were carrying very heavy loads.
Yeah.
There were 2 dislocations and then just damage to shoulders, wrists, and ankles. Of the 71 teeth, they discovered a lot of people had been brushing their teeth regularly. So there was some evidence of good dental hygiene. Some had gold fillings or preparations for fillings. So there was at least one dentist in Gold Rush, San Francisco.
Yeah, that's very unexpected to me. Like, if you asked me if they were filling teeth in the 1850s, I would have been like, hell no.
They found some animal bones. sort of normal. People.
Yeah, I mean, animals die. Yeah.
They only found a couple of artifacts, but I love hearing about these. One was a plain gold ring, size 7, engraved on the inside with the script LAW to DFW.
Somebody's wedding ring.
Could search who those initials belong to and maybe figure out their love story. The other was a pewter insignia pin, probably from the U.S. Army Artillery, dating back to the Civil War, which is actually interesting because, like, most of these burials were well before the Civil War.
Yeah, I was going to say that is interesting. The timelines don't line up, I guess. Yeah.
They didn't find any what they call cemetery furniture, headstones, markers, footstones, fragments, crosses, angels, etc. They didn't find any coffin parts. So just these little bones. And as far as I know, they cleared everything out before the library was erected. Mm-hmm. But I love that they actually went to that level of detail, which is a nice change from everything leading up to that.
You mean finally? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is nice. So, I mean, I assume those small bones and things were interred somewhere nearby, do you think? Or did the Emmy still have it?
That's a good question. And I might have the answer somewhere, but I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah. So I thought I would go through what's on this site today. Just because people go through here all the time, and I don't think they realize just how big this property is, or, that there's graves underneath it still. So,
I can guarantee you they don't.
Yeah. So the main libraries here, Asian Art Museum, the UN Plaza, which hosts the farmers market and the usual street fair and the food trucks and all of that stuff. There's that amazing and controversial fountain.
That fountain is open again.
Is it?
I was just over there. Yeah. They have scrubbed UN Plaza down like the Pope is coming. I don't know where everyone went, but the fountain is operating.
Yeah.
They're playing music. Yeah.
So part of this site was used as a safe sleeping site during the pandemic. So there was a homeless sort of outdoor tent facility for people. The Orpheum Theater is in this footprint. That very controversial Burger King that is now closed, but
they closed that. Yeah,
I love that you call it that Burger King, because if you're from San Francisco, it was like bulletproof windows, like where you had to order through them, and
they were playing classical music outside at high volume, thinking that homeless people weren't going to like that. And I thought I would outline some of the things that are not in this footprint. The current City Hall Civic Center Plaza is not in the footprint. So
my geography is totally messed up. I keep saying like Civic Center Plaza, and it's actually the UN Plaza. Got it.
Exactly.
Don't listen to me, you guys.
The Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, not in this footprint.
Yeah. Oh, not. Oh, not. Okay.
The Department of Public Health building and Fox Plaza. So, like, if you keep extending the triangle, it includes all these things, but they are not in there. The line stops at Market Street. Just to close out here, I just want to say again, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of graves that are still here. I am personally trying to work with city supervisors to try to get this site landmarked.
Yeah, hell yeah. Why not? Right?
And there's sort of a two-part process. One is creating a designation for a landmark, but that doesn't come with any kind of like a sign or a plaque or anything. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that too. I don't know if it will happen.
Who do we pay off, Beth?
Here's the thing. I was doing a publicity event at the Columbarium in October of 2023. And I was talking about this site and the lack of recognition. And at that moment, there was, I think, a 5-point-something earthquake.
The spirits have spoken.
And the ashes of 10,000 San Franciscans were shaking in unison, and I felt like they're trying to tell me something.
Oh my God, I love it. They were like, Beth.
Yes.
Get to work, Beth.
So,
Beth
I've been working on this
you're
for
our only hope.
I've been working on this for a couple years. It's still in process. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm going to try. It seems like they're telling me you need to make sure people know about this cemetery.
Think so. And if you're listening and you work for the mayor or the supervisors or whoever it is, hook us up.
So that's Yerba Buena Cemetery.
That's amazing. Well, thanks everyone for listening to our inaugural podcast. And we are so happy to have you here. And if you have any, I don't know, like any stories for us, any questions, any tips, what should people send in, Beth? Ghost stories? If you found a body in your yard? Don't, just kidding.
Call the medical examiner office if that happens.
That's all. Call the police. What are you doing?
Although from prior experience, if it's an old one, they'll tell you it's your property. So it's your responsibility.
Yes, we'll cover that story also. So everybody.
But I will say I have actually heard some ghost stories from people who live in and around the Yerba Buena Cemetery, and those would always be great. We're at show@deadreckoningpodcast.com.
Yeah, check us out and send us your stories, and we'll see you next time.
Dead Reckoning, the podcast where death isn't the end of the story. Hosted by Courtney Minnick and Beth Weingardner, produced by Carolyn Kissick and Here Lies a Story, with art design by Dante Silliman. Our music is Act Calm by OTE. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Dead Reckoning on your favorite podcast platform, or email us at show@deadreckoningpodcast.com. You can follow Courtney at Here Lies a Story on Instagram and at Courtney Minnick on Blue Sky, and see more of her work at herelisastory.com. You can follow Beth at Beth Weingardner on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Mastodon, and see more of her work at bethweingardner.com.